For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Sashni Woodley. Author Ray Hartley joins me today to discuss his book, Ramaphosa, The Man Who Would Be King. So can you start off by giving us some insights into Ramaphosa's upbringing and where his interest in politics began?
Well, he was involved in the Student Christian Association at school and at university, and it became quite politicized during the Black Consciousness era, especially when there were a lot of leadership that were detained, banned, arrested. They sort of shifted into the student activist space, and people like Cyril and Frank Chikani politicized that young student movement, and it became quite a big political organization.
You write that Ramaphosa was capable of charm, but if provoked, could project a cold, controlled anger. What did you mean?
Yeah, that's interesting about Cyril is that he knows how to play power well and how to keep his adversaries off balance. And he did that very effectively, obviously as a negotiator for the National Union of Mine Workers, but also during the constitutional negotiation process, where he would from time to time, just really sort of ice somebody out, just to put them in their place, keep them on their toes. He developed a very good relationship with Rolf Meyer, and they got on very well. And a lot of the constitutional talks, breakthroughs occurred because of that relationship. But from time to time, he would, he'd give Rolf a hard time, Why are you talking to me like that? Is it because I'm a black person? And just kind of throw him off balance.
What was Cyril Ramaphosa's role in the unity process leading up to COSATU's launch in 1985?
Yeah, what Ramaphosa did was he started out in the Black Consciousness movement and in fact started organizing mine workers under CUSA, which was in the Black Consciousness movement. But because the ANC was emerging as a very effective force in exile and had a very high profile and also had the internal mass democratic movement inside the country, he changed horses. He shifted that union out of CUSA and began associating it with ANC-aligned politics. And then he was quite a central figure and a convener, in fact, of the final talks to set up COSATU. And also, not only that, but also ensured that COSATU aligned itself more closely with the ANC, with the mass democratic movement than with other political formations.
Can you tell us what was Ramaphosa's introduction to Nelson Mandela, and why was his access to Mandela no political accident?
Well, in 1987 there was a massive mine workers strike, and part of the effect of that strike was to create a big impression on the ANC leadership who were in jail, especially the socialist elements of that leadership like Kgalema Motlanthe. And essentially, they were quite cheered by the fact that there was this massive internal strike. And they noticed Ramaphosa's leadership. And then in the final days or months of Mandela's imprisonment, he actually was, things were loosened up quite a lot. And he received visitors, and among them was Cyril Ramaphosa, so he got to meet him. And Ramaphosa was on the National Reception Committee, played a leading role in that committee. So when Mandela came out of jail, he was at Mandela's side, and very famously was on the balcony of the Cape Town City Hall when Mandela gave that big speech. And so they developed quite a close relationship, and it endured, and eventually I think Mandela preferred him as a candidate to take over as president.
Now, Mandela wanted Ramaphosa to be his deputy. However, Thabo Mbeki took up this role instead. What happened, and what was Ramaphosa's take on this decision?
I think what happened when the ANC was unbanned and returned to the country is that there were two strands of the ANC now. There was the internal mass democratic movement, the trade unions, and then there were returning exiles. And in 1991, for the first time, those two strands got together at the ANC's first conference inside the country. And much to the shock of the exiled leadership, Ramaphosa was elected Secretary General. And who did he beat in that election? Jacob Zuma and Alfred Nzo, so two senior exile figures. And I think at that point they realized that this ANC was moving out of the exile territory. And they mounted quite a major campaign, essentially, to get it back, and managed eventually to overwhelm Mandela, essentially, with the demand that he should make Mbeki and not Ramaphosa his deputy president.
Ramaphosa is widely credited as the leading architect of the constitution. What was his role?
Well, I think he was the key negotiator. He played a major role in getting the Bill of Rights through. He actually was on the committee that was responsible for that and for the constitutional principles. And I was on that committee. I was a minute secretary at that committee, so I saw firsthand what he did. And he was a very powerful figure. He drove that process from the front. And I think that his ability to drive a bargain, to sense when the opposition was off balance and to push home the advantage, was quite phenomenal. And I think out of that negotiation process, the ANC won everything. They won a majoritarian state. It was not federal, it was a unitary state with provinces, but ultimately a unitary state. It had an executive presidency. It was not, all these things that the National Party wanted, group rights to be accommodated. There was a Bill of Rights which accommodated individual rights, but didn't actually entrench any rights for specific ethnic groups. And so all of those things were won in the negotiation process, which is quite an achievement.
Now, you wrote that you spoke to Ramaphosa about why he left politics to go into business, and he denied that he was pushed out by the ANC. So what were the reasons that he gave you?
Yeah, he denies that. I'm not sure if that's entirely true. I think that he was pushed out, or at least he saw that there was no future for him in the ANC leadership at that point. But these things work in funny ways, because he was also approached, in fact, by Dikgang Moseneke on behalf of the Ntata Motlana's National Empowerment Consortium, which was putting together the first major BEE deal. And I think he got quite excited by that prospect. And there didn't seem to be a great deal happening for him inside the ANC leadership. So he took 20 years off and went into business.
One of the most bizarre stories involving Ramaphosa involves the bidding for a buffalo cow. Can you tell us about this and about why he subsequently apologized for this bidding?
Yeah, it was all very strange. He was at an auction, and these animals are extremely valuable and very sought after, and based on the width of their horns and all this kind of stuff. And this cow and calf came up and they were bid on. And he bid, and he went all the way up to 18 million, and he lost it. I think the final bid was 20 million. He lost out on that. And it caused an enormous storm out there, because, why was he spending so much money on one buffalo? And I think that was misplaced. I mean, it wasn't a pet. It wasn't going to curl up on his bed at night. And, it was a business asset that he was buying. But because of this huge outcry, and because Ramaphosa, I think, is very sensitive about being typecast as a rich, kind of capitalist, he actually issued this apology and said that he'd got, he'd lost it in the moment. But a year later, Johan Rupert and others bought a buffalo for 40 million. But there was no sort of, no one even really reported on that. It was just because these are business assets.
You spoke to Ramaphosa about why he decided to come back to politics full-time. What were his reasons?
He says that he was feeling the call of people inside the organization for him to come back. And that there was enthusiastic reception for him at branch level. I think he made a calculated comeback. He saw the opportunity that after Zuma there would be the need for someone to come in from outside that particular camp and clean out the ANC. And I think he felt that he could fit that description. So he made a decision to go back into politics. Quite early on. I mean, it started when he he expelled Julius Malema from the organization because he was chair of the appeals committee, and he actually hardened the sentence that had been given to Malema. Malema had been suspended, and he expelled him. And I think that did Zuma a big favor, because Malema on the other side at a party conference is bad news, and no one knows that better than Zuma, you know. So he played an insider game from then on, you know, was at Zuma's side and being loyal and supportive up to a point, and recently has broken with that.
Now, like you said, many people would think that he sat back during Zuma's presidency by not speaking out against corruption. Was he complacent, or was he brewing a plan?
No, I think he was conscious of the balance of forces within the ANC. So, you know, Zuma's been very unpopular with the general public, but inside the ANC there's a very powerful glue that holds things together, even when they are very, very broken. And this idea that they've got to hold, support the leader no matter what, and all this kind of thing. And so he held it maybe too long. I think he may have gone too far, because a lot of other senior ANC leaders started breaking ranks, and he didn't do so. But his idea was that you've got to stay inside and know when the moment's right to sort of challenge. And that, I think, in the last 3 months, 4 months, is what he's finally done.
Your last chapter of the book asks an important question. Is Ramaphosa the man to lead South Africa out of its political and economic crisis? What do you think?
I think on paper, Ramaphosa has the potential to be that person. He has the background, he's got the organizational ability, because I think it's a very big organizational task that has to be undertaken now, to rethink how the economy should be functioning, to rethink politics within the ANC and how it operates. And he does have the potential to do that. Whether he can break free from the constraints that the ANC will place on him is another matter. One of the things he'll have to do is be very tough on corruption and crack down hard. But that's not necessarily going to be popular within the organization, because firstly there are a lot of people who are implicated in one way or another with benefiting out of the whole state capture enterprise, who will be very unhappy, and people who weren't involved in that state capture enterprise but maybe, you know, have got some skeletons in their cupboards. So it's going to take a lot of courage and will to sort that out, to clean that out. And it remains to be seen whether Ramaphosa has that ability to disrupt, to be the person on the outside disrupting.
What are your predictions for the ANC's December elective conference?
I think on paper Ramaphosa is looking good. I think he's got the votes. Very narrowly though, and lots can happen. You know, a lot of the provinces have declared, and very large majorities, some of them, for Ramaphosa. And of course Zana's done badly in KwaZulu-Natal, which you'd expect to be her strong point. So I think he's looking good on paper. Whether or not that translates into actual votes at the conference, because there's a lot that can happen between now and the conference to change people's minds, not least of which, you know, talk of bribery and brown envelopes and all that kind of thing. So let's see. I think on paper I would say yes.
That was author Ray Hartley discussing his book, Ramaphosa, the Man Who Would Be King.